Hi, my name's Andrew Paterson. I'm Managing Director of Great Boulder Resources. And on this next video, I'm just going to talk briefly about drilling techniques. So at Great Boulder, we use 4 main drilling techniques, which is in common with most people in the industry, and that's including auger. If we're counting auger as a drilling technique, we also use air core. We talk about that a lot, and RC is one of our primary resource definition techniques, and a little bit of diamond drilling. And I'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages of all of those. And one thing to bear in mind is that the frequency of which we use these is inversely proportional to their cost. So, for example, we're averaging about 1,000 auger holes per year at the project. Last year, air core, we did, 126 holes in 2023, 114 RC. Air core is decreasing and RC increasing at that project, and we did 5 diamond holes. So that gives you an example of the frequency of each technique. So firstly, auger drilling. We've seen this photo before, our geologist Dave out there at Sidewell generating new data. So this is really, in this example, a handheld technique. It can also be done with a vehicle mounted rig. And in our case, the cost of it is basically free other than salaries. And that's because we own this machine. It only costs a few $100s, and we do this sort of work in the guy's spare time. The speed of sample coverage is about 50 to 100 samples per day, depending on the terrain and the sample spacing. So it's fast and it's cheap. The disadvantages are that it's constrained by the regolith, which means that we can't use it in any alluvial cover. It can only be done in basically outcropping or subcropping geology. The reason for that is that alluvial cover will screen off or hide any underlying mineralization. So once we've defined an early stage geochemical target, we then use air core drilling to test it. So this is a truck mounted rig. This is a relatively small one. This is still fairly cheap, and it costs about in the order of $20 up to about $25 a metre at the rig, by which I mean that's not including salaries or assays. It's quite fast and it's fairly typical to drill about 400 to 600 metres a day, and sometimes up to 1,000 metres a day in good conditions. So it's a very fast technique, and it means the team on the ground are literally running to keep up with it. So those are the advantages. It's fast and cheap, and it gives you a good clean sample. The disadvantages are that it will only drill, because it's basically a rotating bit generally without a hammer. It won't penetrate fresh rock. So it gives you a nice sample at the top of fresh rock, which is the main purpose of air core drilling. Once we've confirmed a geochemical target with air core drilling, we then close in the drill spacing again and use RC, or reverse circulation drilling. Now this again is a truck mounted technique. It costs a bit more, about $65 to $70 per metre at the rig, and it's a bit slower. So we're typically drilling around 150, sometimes 250 metres a day. So we generally budget on around 4,000 to 6,000 metres per month. The advantages are it's a good, accurate, clean sampling technique. It can drill down to about 300 metres depth. It is, however, limited by ground conditions and can particularly suffer in wet ground, where in deeper drilling, the deeper you go, the slower it gets, and the cost per metre starts to increase to the point where it becomes more economic to consider diamond drilling. And that's the 4th technique. So diamond drilling, typically truck mounted, but it can be on a tracked rig or sometimes skid mounted. And this is very expensive. So typically $200 to $300 per metre, and drilling at around 30 to 50 metres per shift. So we can do diamond drilling safely at night. It's simpler. It's easy to set the site up for night shift drilling. So you can do it 24 hours a day. The advantages of diamond drilling are really that you get the maximum amount of value from samples. So you can get things like geotechnical information, you can get metallurgical information, and obviously your lithology and the assay. So a lot of information per metre. Disadvantages are the speed. It's quite slow. and it's very expensive. So we tend to use this as the very last stage of resource definition. So that's my very brief overview of drilling techniques. So thanks for listening, and feel free to make comments on the YouTube channel about other topics. Thank you.